Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be doing kind of a 2019 wrap-up sort of deal. So what I'm going to do is kind of share a little bit of my reading stats with you from the year. Most of them are I pulled from Goodreads. And then I'm also going to do my top 3 kind of, I don't want to say best books of the year because not all of these were actually 5-star reads, but I want to say the top 3 books that have kind of stuck with me the most and the ones that I still like remember and think about more so than some of the others. And I'm also going to do my 3 like least favorite books of the year. So these are actually gonna be my lowest rated books of the year. We're gonna go right into the stats first. Now, like I said, I pulled this from my Goodreads account. So I read a total of 33 books this year. I could argue that I read 35 because I did DNF 4 books. But I'm not gonna count 2 of them because I didn't get like really far into them before I DNF'd them. I am counting the other 2 though because I made it over halfway through before deciding to DNF. So I'm actually counting those. Of those 33 books, I read about 12,300 pages. I say about because of those 2 books that I only got about a little over halfway-ish through. So it's gonna be a little bit less than that, probably more closer to the 1,200 range. I'm a 12,000 range. My goal was 50 books, which is also going to be my 2020 goal. This was last year, 2019 was the first year that I made the goal to be 50 books, only because in 2018 I read 37 books, which was probably the most I've read in several years. So I was gonna see if I could just kind of increase each year. I'm still gonna keep 50 for this year and see what happens, only because in 2019 I had a really pretty lengthy reading slump from like the end of the summer until like November. So it was a pretty long reading slump. And then I did a decent amount in November and the beginning of December, and then the end of December, just because of the holiday, it was just like not good. So we're gonna try to go for the gold in 2020 and see what happens. Kudos to all of you that can read. I think Chelsea Dulling read like 200 and some books in 2019, and I applaud you because wow. There's also a big chunk of that time where I was binge watching the entire series of Supernatural because I was really behind. I think I stopped watching it at like season 8 or so. And now that they're in their last season, I was like, oh, I need to be here for the very end, like along with everyone. So I caught up through where they are right now because they are on their winter break right now. So I am ready to go and keep up until the end of the show, which is so sad right now. I'm so sad and upset that I wasn't able to keep up with it through the entire like fangirl, because now I'm like obsessed with it and it's starting to, I mean, I don't want to say it's starting to wind down, but it's like the end of the season or the end of the series, and I missed what could have been amazing 7 years of fangirling with everyone else. But I just went off on a huge tangent, so that's beside the point. Back to reading. So the I took notes because if you watch my 2020 goals, which I will link up in the top here, part of my goals was to be a little bit more organized with my videos, which we'll see. So my shortest book that I read was Falling for the Bad Boy by, I think that was Kennedy Fox, and that was 246 pages. And the longest book I read was Grave Mercy by Robin Lefevers, and that was 549 pages. That was also my first 5-star read of the year, by the way. Fun fact. Of the books I read this year, the most popular was Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, which is no surprise to anybody. The least popular was Baby Yours by Kennedy Fox, which I read on ebook. My average rating for my 33 books was a 3.7, which is, I mean, that's around higher middle range, so that's not too bad. And then I broke it down a little bit further. So of the 33 books, 4 of them were audio, which was the Elle Kennedy's Off-Campus series. I did all 4 of those for audio, which is my first audio books I did all the way through. It's exciting. 3 of them were Kindle books. And this was the year that I recently subscribed to Kindle Unlimited. So 2020 is going to see a lot more ebooks, which I hope to I hope that'll bulk up my reading goal a little bit, because my one issue with not being able to bring a physical book with me everywhere, like for a while I was bringing a book with me everywhere, like to work and stuff, but it just got to be a little bit too much. And I like that I can pull the Kindle app up on my phone if I'm waiting in line or waiting somewhere and just read a couple pages or something, you know, and kind of still work through books and stuff without having to carry a big chunky book with me. Genre wise, I'm gonna combine like fantasy, sci-fi, paranormal all kind of into one lump group. I'm not gonna break it down individually, but I read 8 YA fantasy etceteras. I read 5 YA contemporaries. I read 5 adult fantasy etc. I read 6 adult contemporaries. I read 7 new adult, thanks to Jess from Peace Love Books, because I was just binging all of her videos at the beginning of the year and getting so many awesome recommendations. So that's where a lot of those new adults come from. And then, as I said before, I DNF'd 4 books. So overall, it wasn't that bad of a year. In the end, I was trying to make it to my goal from last year, my last year's number, which was 37. Didn't quite make it there, but I came super close. Now we're gonna go into my least favorite and favorite books of the year. I'm going to start with least favorite first, which would be the lowest rating ones that I've read this year. And the first one I'm going to put up on the screen here, and that is Falling for the Bad Boy by Kennedy Fox, which was also my shortest book of the year. So this one, it's promoted as an enemies to lovers romance. Now, I didn't think the enemies part of that was very strong. It was a really weak hatred of each other. I can't even remember the 2 characters' name. Ethan's the guy. I can't remember the girl's name. She had a different Vada. I think it was Veda or something like that. She had a different kind of name. But the whole reason that they disliked each other was just, I don't know, it just felt weak to me. Like, she's a writer, she's in like a writing slump, and to get the juices flowing, she rents his kind of guest house for a week. And when she gets there, he opens the door with no shirt on, and all of a sudden she's just automatically put off by him because she associates that with some of the men she's experienced in her life and had negative experiences with, and just off the top, she just is irritated by him, doesn't like him. He does make some actually like crude and inappropriate jokes for someone he just, like, to her, she was someone he just met. And even though, like, reading it, I wasn't really, like, I'm not one of those people that gets, like, offended by that kind of stuff. However, they were bad jokes. They didn't land well. And they were very crude and not savage, but they were very, like, raunchy. Raunchy was the word I was thinking of. Yeah. And I was just like, nah, okay. And also, so obviously they both have past, but his is actually really sad and really tragic. And it just seemed like this book should have been longer than 250 pages because it was very insta-lovey. The whole part of them being enemies didn't last very long. It became physical very quickly. And he fell, like, after what happened to him, I felt like should have taken longer for him to really open up and allow himself to fall for a girl that quickly. It felt really rushed and forced and not cringy, but almost a little bit like, I don't know. It didn't sit well with me, that kind of thing. And I can't remember if that was I think those were the only things that really bothered me about it as far as I remember. I ended up giving it like 2 stars. The next one was another book I read toward the end of the year, and that is Night Sister by Jennifer McMahon. Now, if you watch my Tis the Spookathon video, you'll know that this is when I read this book, because it's been sitting on my shelves for the last like 4 years or so. And I needed to read it. It was time for me to read it, to get it off my shelf, and that's exactly where it's going to go. I'm unhauling this one actually because I was expecting more thriller. I mean, it was a thriller. It actually had me, it took me a little bit to get into it. Like the first 100 pages or so were a little bit struggle for me because I wasn't reading it in big chunks. I was reading it in like small spurts, and it was hard to keep track of everybody because there were multiple points of view in multiple timelines. So there was like 3 generations, or there was 2 generations, but the one generation was in the 50s, and then we had the younger version of the current generation. Like they were when our main character is an adult now, but it flashes back to when she was a kid. And it was just like there was a lot of time jumping and a lot of like back and forth, and it was hard to keep people straight sometimes at first because like I said, I wasn't reading it all together. It was like really chopped up and spread out. So every time I sat down to continue reading this, I had to kind of take a little bit of time to remember what was going on and to put everybody in their rightful place and stuff like that. So, but once I got through it and was able to sit down and read it in larger portions, it was actually really interesting. I was really intrigued with it. However, the ending, I mean, I did like the twist in it. However, I wasn't, and this is where I feel like I should have been paying better attention, because they kind of tell you what's, they reveal to kind of near the beginning of the book, like what the end is going to be, but I wasn't paying attention. I didn't think anything of it. And so when the ending did reveal itself, I was kind of put off, and it turned out to be more of a paranormal sort of book than a thriller. And I was like, not what I was really wanting to get out of it, expecting. And I don't read a lot of thrillers, so I was really hoping for like a good thriller, because I was, like I said, I was really like into it. But yeah, the end kind of turned me away from it a little bit. There were other things about it I wasn't a fan of, but I ended up giving it 2 stars. I am glad I finally read it and finally got it off my shelf, because I was expecting to really like this. I mean, it's been sitting on my shelf for 4 years. It's made it through so many unhauls. But now I can safely say that I wasn't that big of a fan, so I'm going to end up getting rid of it, but I'm glad I finally was able to read it. The 3rd book on my list is actually my most disappointing book of the year, and that is Evermore by Sarah Holland. Now, this is the 2nd book of the Everless duet. I loved Everless. It was the first ever book I got in a book box. I really enjoyed it. I really loved the whole magical system where they use blood as time. So you pretty much pay off your debts by giving your life's blood, like literally your life's blood. You'll take years off your life. And they turn it into coin. I was really looking forward to the sequel to Evermore. I was really hoping it would go a different direction. It didn't go where I expected it to go, where I wanted it to go, where I hoped it would go, and I was just utterly disappointed by it. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars overall, because I just felt like the world was still really interesting, and the whole magical system was really interesting. But the plot line, the story, and I think the love interest, if I remember, I can't remember. It's been a while, so I read this at the very beginning of the year, so I don't remember a whole lot of what happens, which is also a bad sign, because I just remember, you know, if I really, really love something, it's going to stick with me. But yeah, overall, it was just disappointing, and it's also going to end up being unhauled. Even though I really did enjoy Everless, I'm probably not going to end up reading them again. So they're both going to be unhauled so I can make room on my shelves for some new things. All right, and then we're moving on to my top 3 books of the year. And now, like I said, these aren't all 5-star books. I think only one of these is actually a 5-star book. I did have more 5-star books throughout the year, which kind of, you're probably thinking, why don't you just do all your 5-star books? Because obviously they're your favorite books. But these are just the ones that really have resonated with me. They might not have been perfect, they would have had their flaws, but I still think about them. And this first one was actually on this list because I was like, Evermore was my most disappointing one. This was actually one that surprised me the most, because I went into it not really expecting much, and that is Lucky Strikes by Louise Bayard. I'm sorry, the dog is chewing her bone like right below the camera, so if that noise in the background, that's her. Anyway, so this is a young adult story about a group of siblings who lose their mother. They're orphans, and their oldest sister, I forget her name, something, Amelia, is in charge of them and taking care of the gas station / convenience store they own, and making sure they all stay together as a family, because there is the big rich oil guy who's trying to buy out their gas station. And in order to get the kids off the property so he can take over, he sticks social services on them. And in order to keep social services off their backs, Amelia coerces pretty much a hobo that stumbles onto their property into playing the role of their father in exchange for a place to stay, food to eat, and essentially a job and a purpose. So it's really good. Like, I honestly, the only reason I ended up getting this was because, one, I was a few dollars short of the $35 free shipping limit on Book Outlet, and two, I just really liked the typography of the title and like the whole like graphic design overall on the cover. The synopsis did interest me when I was reading it, but ultimately it really was not something I actually didn't really even expect to read it. I expected it to be one of those books that sat on my shelf for years and I just ended up giving up on it on hauling. But back in the beginning of the year, I was doing really well with pulling my books for the month out of my TBR jar and actually reading them. Then I got really bad about it and started to mood read. So this was actually one of the books I pulled out of my TBR jar and read within that month, and was so surprised by it. I really loved it, flew through it, and it felt like I was reading a book for like middle school or high school, which is surprising because I used to hate when I had to read books for school, but that's a whole other rant. But it did feel like a kind of curriculum sort of book, if that makes sense. But I did really enjoy this, and if you're looking for something like quick middle grade-y, YA, I don't know if this is middle grade or YA. I think she's 16. She's like 15 or 16, the oldest sister, so I don't know if that would be YA or middle grade. I don't know. Anyway, I do recommend this one if you guys ever. I talk about it a lot in previous videos, like toward the beginning of the year, so you can check those out if you want to hear more about it. The next one was one of the last ones I read for the year, and that is Twisted Palace by Erin Watt. If you watched one of my reading vlogs, I raved about this because this was my final 5-star read of the year. I loved this book. Oh my god. It had me reeling. It had me so hyped up on my emotions. I was frustrated. I was angry. I was upset. And like, not at anything the writer did. Like, I was upset as a character in this world would be, if that makes any sense. Like, it took me through the ringer. There were so many, I don't want to say there were so many, I can't really tell you what this one is about because there are huge spoilers for the rest of the series. This is the third, oh, by the way, this is the third book in the Royals series, but it's the third and final book of the Ella and Reed trilogy. So there's a cliffhanger at the end of Broken Prince, and it picks up right when that one leaves off. And oh my god, like, it blows my mind. The ending had me flipping out, and just so many twists, not so many twists and turns, but the ending had a big twist in it, which realistically I should have seen it from the beginning. If I was a person that read like thrillers and mysteries, I feel like I would have guessed that at the beginning of this, but just because of the odd coincidence that happened. But anyway, I'm not gonna try to, I don't want to spoil it for you guys. But a lot of people don't, I mentioned this before, a lot of people are not a fan of this series because of the problematic themes and some of the stuff in it. I'm here for it. I love all the dark shit that's like taboo and like messed up. I'm here for that. It makes for a really good story. So I really do recommend the Royal series if that's the kind of stuff that doesn't bother you. Yeah, so I did get Fallen Heir because it was cheap on Amazon. It was like $8 on Amazon, where most of these are like $13, $14. So I grabbed that one. It just recently came, which is the first book of the Easton duet. So there's Fallen Heir and Cracked Kingdom, I think is the fifth book. I don't have that one, but I did get Fallen Heir, so I'm hoping to read that as soon as possible because there is a hinting at that in this. So like, everyone starts wondering what's with Easton, why is he acting so weird, and then we finally get why in his book, and I'm really, really excited about that. So I'm going to stop rambling about this now and move on to my third book. And that is going to be Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about this book. I did at first when I first started reading it, because I thought I was gonna be super disappointed and be on the bandwagon with everyone else that was disappointed in this and DNF'd it. Like with The Night Sister, the first 100 pages were very slow, but unlike with The Night Sister, once I got past that bit of slowness at the beginning, I could not put this down. It was amazing. It lived up to the hype. My expectations were met. I loved it. I loved the dark academia. I loved the magic. I loved that it's set at Yale, which brought me back all the Gilmore Girls vibes for some of the places they mentioned. Yeah, this was so good. I love that there's a ghost, kind of like a ghost secondary character, the bridegroom. He's freaking awesome. He doesn't really do a whole lot, but like when he's around, I mentioned this before, I'm gonna mention it again just because it's so funny. When he's around, he has like these reactions to things that just had me like giggling to myself, because I'm just picturing him there like so yeah, it was really interesting. And then of course it ends not quite on a cliffhanger, kind of on a cliffhanger, but it sets up really well for the next book. So I cannot wait to read the next one. And this is a book that I really think, now that I've read it all the way through and know I really enjoyed it in the end, that I'm gonna go back and eventually one day, I say one day, I don't know, maybe this year, we'll see how I'm feeling, but I'm gonna go back and reread it again and see if the beginning is any different now that I know how it's gonna go after the first like 100 pages, just because it took me, like I said, it took me a little bit to get into, to care. But once I did, I really cared. So that was, and by the way, the Lucky Strikes and Ninth House were 4-star reads for me. My other 5-star reads, if I remember correctly, I know King of Scars, again by Leigh Bardugo, was a 5-star read for me. Just because it's Nikolai. I fucking love Nikolai. My only issue with that book was it wasn't enough Nikolai. And that's not enough of a reason for me to like, it wasn't enough of a reason for me to like kind of bump it down stars, because I don't know, I'm not going to go into that. I do explain why my issues with King of Scars in a different video, but yeah, that was my other 5-star read. And I think The Score by Elle Kennedy was also a 5-star read, which was the 3rd book of her off-campus series. That was Dean's story. I believe it was Dean. Because we got Garrett's the first one. Logan's the one I didn't, that was the one I didn't even like really remember. Dean, and then yeah, Tuck is the 4th one. So yeah, that Score was my other 5-star read. And I don't remember if I gave Six the Crows 5 stars, or I might have, I don't know. Anyway, that is my 2019 wrap up. Let me know down in the comments below what your favorite book of the year was and what your least favorite book of the year was. And I hope to see you guys more in 2020. I have a bunch of videos planned out for at least January, maybe into February as well. I hope you guys are eager to see more of me, and that's it. I'll see you guys next time in a new one. Bye!